There's a man from Cordoba who faced the test. One wrong word and he loses his head and probably his family too. So he says he doesn't know. He lies, and he watches the king turn to someone else, someone bolder. He speaks anyway, not because it's safe now, but because silence had already cost him more than honesty ever could. This video will dive in deep dark corners of philosophy and unsettling psychology. We will not explicitly talk about Zeta hierarchy, but you will of course get it. Clearly this is not for everyone. If you've came through this intro, you're already in the category of rare. Now keep your mind clear for these 20 minutes. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Chapter 1. The Hidden Architect. You ever look at a painting and feel something is off? Something hidden in plain sight that everyone else seems to miss? Raphael's School of Athens. Plato pointing up, Aristotle gesturing down. The perfect image of Western wisdom. But there's a man in that fresco most people walk right past. Bronze skin, turban, standing behind Pythagoras like a ghost they forgot to edit out. That man is Ibn Rushd, Averroes to the Latins, the father of rationalism, the guardian of philosophers, and the most dangerous mind the Islamic world ever produced. Here's what they don't tell you. While Europe was stumbling through its dark ages, this Andalusian judge was dissecting Aristotle's logic and building a system of thought so precise it would eventually crack open the Renaissance. He believed philosophy wasn't optional. It was compulsory, a religious duty. He pulled that justification straight from the Quran itself. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Ibn Rushd didn't believe everyone was capable of rational thought. He divided society into 3 tiers. The philosophers at the top, capable of demonstrative truth. The theologians in the middle, stuck with dialectical arguments. And the masses at the bottom, who could only handle metaphors and symbols. He believed most people weren't educated enough to think for themselves. That's not elitism. That's observation. Look around. How many people actually reason versus how many just repeat what they've been told? The man saw reality clearly and refused to pretend otherwise. He knew some truths were too sharp for untrained hands, and he kept his mouth shut when it mattered, until he knew the ruler was ready to hear him. Patience. Timing. The mark of a mind that operates from internal compulsion rather than external validation. Zetas understand this instinctively. Sigmas learn it early. Alphas never learn at all. Chapter 2. The Judge Who Put Reason on Trial. Have you ever felt people attack the person instead of the idea? You explain your thinking, yet somehow you become the problem. That is exactly the world Ibn Rushd stepped into. He was not fighting armies. He was fighting confusion. A judge by profession, a physician by training, and a philosopher by conviction, he understood something uncomfortable. Most conflicts are not born from evil. They are born from people speaking beyond what they truly understand. That sounds harmless until entire civilizations begin making decisions on shallow certainty. This might sound harsh. Knowledge without discipline becomes one of the most dangerous forms of arrogance. Ibn Rushd believed philosophy demanded years of training, just as nobody would trust a med student to perform heart surgery. Yet people constantly perform intellectual surgery on subjects they have never studied. The damage is simply less visible. Daniel Dunning and Justin Kruger discovered this pattern in 1999. Their research showed that people with lower competence often overestimate their own understanding because they lack the ability to recognize their mistakes. The mind protects its confidence even while betraying its judgment. That bias explains why loud certainty often defeats quiet expertise. Alphas often protect influence because influence keeps status alive. Sigmas spend years learning before speaking because competence is their currency. Zetas can become dangerous here. When disciplined, they question everything until they find the strongest answer. Without discipline, they question everything simply to dominate the room. The instinct stays the same. Character decides where it lands. Sun Tzu warned that knowing yourself without understanding the field invites defeat. Ibn Rushd lived by a similar rule. Before you challenge the world, ask whether you have first defeated your own ignorance. Many never reach that first victory. Chapter 3. Not everyone is having the same conversation. You ever explain something to someone and watch it just bounce off, like the words never landed? That used to frustrate me until I understood what Ibn Rushd figured out 8 centuries ago. Some people reason through hard proof, cause and effect, nothing accepted without evidence. Others need debate, back and forth, testing an idea against resistance before they'll trust it. And most people, the majority, absorb truth through story, symbol, image. Not because they're incapable, but because that's the tool that fits their hand. Here's the part that stings a little. He didn't rank these as better or worse. He said each one works, as long as it's used honestly. A doctor doesn't shame a patient for not understanding pharmacology. He just gives the medicine in a form the patient can take. Ibn Rushd believed only the trained mind should touch the hardest questions directly, while everyone else worked through parable and story. Seneca argued something similar, that philosophy wasn't for showing off in front of a crowd, it was for quiet, disciplined use. So next time someone doesn't get your point, ask if you're speaking their language or just performing your own. Chapter 4. When someone attacks what you've spent a lifetime building. Has anyone ever tried to dismantle your life's work in a single sentence? Al-Ghazali did that to an entire tradition. One book and centuries of rational inquiry got labeled dangerous, unbelieving, corrosive to faith. Ibn Rushd wasn't there to defend his own name. He wasn't even alive at the same time as Al-Ghazali. But he picked up the wreckage anyway and wrote a response that took the attack apart piece by piece. That's a strange kind of loyalty, who never asked for it, simply because the ideas mattered more than the personalities carrying them. Nietzsche talked about convictions being more dangerous enemies of truth than lies, but Ibn Rushd wasn't fighting a lie. He was fighting a misreading, a distortion, and he understood the difference between disagreeing with an idea and setting it on fire to look righteous. This might sound uncomfortable, but most people don't actually want debate, they want a villain. Al-Ghazali needed the philosophers to be the villain of faith. Ibn Rushd refused to let that story stick, even knowing it would cost him standing in his own community. So think about the last argument you won by making the other side sound evil instead of just wrong. Easier, sure. Cheaper too. Chapter 5. Where the Zeta logic seats. You ever build an argument so solid that even the people who disagree with your conclusion can't touch your logic? Ibn Rushd did that with the existence of God. Most theologians of his time argued from contingency. Some first cause had to kick off the chain of existence, therefore God. Ibn Rushd thought that argument was weak, too abstract, too easy to poke holes in. So he built something sturdier. He looked at the design of the world itself, the precision of it, the fact that everything seems fitted for a purpose, and said that pattern alone points to a maker. Not a chain of causes, a design. Here's what's easy to miss. He wasn't trying to win an argument for its own sake. He was trying to build something that could survive contact with a skeptic. A lot of people build beliefs that only work in friendly rooms, surrounded by people who already agree. The moment a real challenge shows up, the whole structure collapses because it was never built to take weight. This might sound harsh, but most convictions people hold have never actually been tested. They've just never been seriously questioned. Ibn Rushd tested his own thinking against the sharpest minds of his era before he trusted it. So before you defend a belief loudly, ask if you've ever defended it against someone who actually wanted to take it apart. We're halfway through the dive. Congratulations if you're here. Comment down and thumb it up so that we know. Share this video with friends. Let's dive deeper. Chapter 6. When someone tries to burn an idea. Has anyone ever watched someone dismiss years of work with one sentence? As if everything you've built could disappear because someone spoke louder. Ideas don't usually die from evidence. They die from reputation. That's exactly what Ibn Rushd walked into. Years before he picked up his pen, another scholar had already changed the battlefield. It wasn't simply a disagreement with philosophy. It was a public accusation. Philosophy was no longer presented as difficult. It was presented as dangerous. You can imagine what happened next. Once an idea becomes associated with fear, people stop examining it. They start avoiding it. Most thinkers would have protected themselves. After all, Ibn Rushd had a respected career. He was a judge, a physician, a man close enough to power to understand how quickly favor disappears. Instead, he walked toward the fire. He was defending men who were already dead because he believed a distorted argument should never become history simply because nobody answered it. That tells you something about character. Most people defend people. Very few defend principles. Nietzsche later warned that convictions can become greater enemies of truth than lies. A lie can be corrected. A conviction often refuses correction because admitting error feels like losing part of yourself. Ibn Rushd understood something similar centuries earlier. He wasn't fighting faith. He was fighting the habit of replacing difficult questions with comfortable certainty. And that habit never disappeared. Today, people rarely silence an idea by proving it false. They silence it by making the person behind it look immoral. Once that happens, the crowd does the rest. Chapter 7: Two Kinds of Knowing. Have you ever been accused of not caring, when really you just understood the situation differently than everyone else in the room? That's roughly what happened to Ibn Rushd when critics accused the philosophers of insulting God by claiming he only knew the big picture and not the small details of individual lives. Ibn Rushd's answer was sharper than a simple denial. He said the critics were comparing two things that aren't comparable. Human knowledge depends on the world to be true. We look, we observe, and our ideas bend to match what's out there. But he argued divine knowledge doesn't work that way at all. It isn't shaped by the world. Reality is shaped by it. Different category. Different kind of knowing entirely. Notice the move he's making. He's not arguing louder. He's pointing out that the whole debate was built on a false comparison from the start, like judging a fish for failing to climb a tree. Seneca made a similar point about anger, that most of it comes from expecting people and things to behave like something they were never built to be. This might sound like a technicality, but most arguments die exactly here, at the level of definitions nobody agreed on first. People fight for hours without noticing they're not even discussing the same thing. So before your next disagreement, ask if you're actually arguing, if you're in the same page, or just describing 69 and calling it a debate. Chapter 8: Agreement Hiding Inside an Argument. Ever watch two people scream at each other for an hour, then realize they actually wanted the same thing the entire time? That's what Ibn Rushd saw in the fight over resurrection. For context, Al-Ghazali's camp insisted the body itself rises again after death. The philosophers on the other side argued for something more spiritual, the soul continuing without the physical shell. Both sides treated this like a war over whether resurrection was even real. Ibn Rushd stepped in and pointed out something almost embarrassing. Nobody in the argument actually denied resurrection. They agreed completely on the core claim. They were only fighting over the mechanism, the how, not the what. That's a specific kind of waste. Energy burned defending a position nobody was attacking, because the noise of disagreement drowned out how much common ground already existed underneath it. This is where the Zeta mind operates differently. Most people jump into conflict ready to dominate. The Zeta doesn't argue directly. He watches. He listens. He finds the one point both sides actually agree on, then uses that as neutral ground to calm the opponent down. He makes them settle for less than they came for. He doesn't need to win the argument. He needs to end the noise. Marcus Aurelius kept returning to a similar discipline, sorting what's actually being disputed from what's just wounded pride looking for a fight. The Zeta holds his true core beliefs inside. He knows that showing your full hand in a heated room is strategic suicide, so he laughs it off. Not mockery, just detachment. He sees the absurdity of two people destroying each other over a misunderstanding they refuse to examine. This might sound obvious once it's spelled out, but most conflict runs on this exact confusion. People assume opposition on the whole when the real gap is one detail wide. So next time you're locked in an argument, ask what you'd find if you stripped away the tone and just listed what both sides actually agree on. It's usually more than either side wants to admit. The Zeta already knows this. He just uses it differently. Chapter 9: The God Who Sees Everything. You ever feel watched? Not by people, by something bigger, something that knows every thought you've ever had. It's unsettling. Al-Ghazali accused the philosophers of denying God's omniscience. He said they claimed God only knew universal matters, not particulars. He made this sound like heresy. Ibn Rushd responded that Al-Ghazali had missed the entire point. The philosophers weren't denying God's knowledge. They were denying that his knowledge worked like ours. Our knowledge depends on the world. We see something and form an idea about it. Truth, for us, is correspondence. The idea matches reality. But God's knowledge isn't like that. He doesn't learn from the world. The world flows from his knowledge. His knowledge creates what it knows. Our knowledge reacts to what exists. This is the distinction between contingent knowledge and necessary knowledge. Ours is contingent. We can be wrong. His is necessary. It is reality itself. Ibn Rushd defended the philosophers by showing that Al-Ghazali had committed the cardinal sin. He had assumed God's mind worked like a human mind. The backfire effect discovered by Brendan Nyhan in 2006 shows that when people's core beliefs are challenged, they often double down. Al-Ghazali did this. He made the philosophers sound like heretics because he couldn't imagine a mode of knowledge different from his own. This is where the Zeta mind sits. You know that validation from outside is fragile. You don't need the world to confirm your worth. The same applies to God. He doesn't need to watch you like a guard. He knows because he created. Zetas grasp this instinctively. They understand that not everyone operates on the same frequency. Some people need metaphors. Others need proof. The wise ones know the difference and speak accordingly. Chapter 10. The harvest you'll never see. You ever pour everything into something and watch it get ignored? Not because it wasn't good, because the timing was wrong, because the audience wasn't ready. That was Ibn Rushd's fate in the Muslim world. His works on jurisprudence still get taught in universities. His philosophy, it barely registered. Al-Ghazali's influence had penetrated too deep. The Neoplatonic tradition had been labeled dangerous. Rational inquiry had been pushed to the margins. His ideas didn't die. They just found a different home. Europe embraced him. The Latin West devoured his commentaries on Aristotle. Thomas Aquinas cited him over and over. The Renaissance emerged partly from the foundations Ibn Rushd had laid. His rationalism, his method, his insistence that philosophy and faith could coexist. This is the strange irony of intellectual history. A man from Cordoba, writing in Arabic, gets translated into Latin and becomes the bridge between ancient Greece and modern Europe. His own people reject him. His enemies' enemies adopt him. Sometimes your legacy isn't for your own people. Sometimes you're planting seeds for a harvest you'll never see. Nietzsche wrote that some are born posthumously. Ibn Rushd was one of them. His influence rippled forward centuries, touching minds that never knew his name. He died in exile, stripped of his judgeship, watched by a regime that no longer trusted him. The same caliph who once gifted him turned against him when politics shifted. Truth doesn't protect you. It abandons you to the wolves. Zetas understand this. They plant without expecting applause. They know that the value of an idea isn't measured by immediate acceptance. It's measured by what it enables centuries later. Ibn Rushd once wrote that God created man with his intellect intact so that he could recreate the world anew every day. That's not just philosophy. That's a call to action, to think, to question, to rebuild. Sigmas build silently. They leave legacies. Alphas build connections first. Zetas build what survives when everyone else is dead. Thanks for watching. This is the end of this line, but we are not done. As usual, we have a bonus chapter, and it'll link you to my next video. You can watch the next one whenever you have time. The truth that cannot be unseen. You ever see something so clearly that you can't unsee it? It changes everything. Your worldview, your relationships, your understanding of who you actually are. Ibn Rushd gave us that clarity, not through comfort, through confrontation. He showed us that not everyone can handle the same truths. He also showed us something darker, that the guardians of faith often become the enemies of truth. Not intentionally, just because conviction without training becomes a weapon. Al-Ghazali didn't set out to destroy philosophy. He set out to protect faith. He just used the wrong tools. He attacked what he didn't fully understand. He divided where he could have united. He created villains where none existed. Ibn Rushd picked up the pieces, not for fame, not for revenge, for the sake of ideas that mattered more than any one person. This is the uncomfortable truth. Most people don't actually want truth. They want confirmation. They want to hear that they're right. They want to be told that their enemies are wrong. Ibn Rushd refused to play that game. He gave us a system, a method, a framework. He gave us the tools to think for ourselves. The Zeta sees this and acts accordingly, not for applause, for the principle. He knows that the world is full of certainty without evidence, confidence without competence, conviction without training. Ibn Rushd showed us a different path. Not easier, more honest,